watching All 24 News World News Program, broadcasting to you live from the capital Algiers. To the headlines. West Bank violence escalates. Fatalities and demolitions reported. Palestinian leadership issues a stark warning over the occupation E1 expansion plan. Also coming up in our news tonight, Trump warns Iran that time is running out on nuclear talks. Tehran demands an end to threats for negotiations. Ankara steps in and calls for dialogue. And the EU declares Europe is no longer a US priority. NATO urged to strengthen its European role, and Greenland vows to resist pressure. The details up next. Welcome back. Great to have you with us tonight. First off, in our news, 2 Palestinian men were killed in a separate incident involving Zionist forces in the occupied West Bank on Tuesday. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports 28-year-old Qusayma Ismail Halayqa was shot and killed near the tunnel's checkpoint close to Beit Lahm. Separately, 20-year-old Mohammed Raja Nasrallah died of critical gunshot wounds after a Zionist raid in the town of Al-Dahiriyah, south of Al-Khalil. Also in Al-Khalil Governorate, Zionist occupation forces carried out demolitions on Wednesday, destroying commercial and agricultural structures, uprooting around 100 olive trees and bulldozing land near the so-called Haggai settlement. Meanwhile, Zionist settlers attacked Palestinian property across the West Bank, uprooting hundreds of olive trees, burning fodder north of the governorate, and injuring Palestinians during stone attacks as well. The Palestinian presidency warned of a dangerous escalation by the occupation in the occupied West Bank, citing plans to build a bypass road around the Zaria. The presidency said the move would isolate Palestinian residents, restrict access to main roads, and advance the so-called E1 project. Spokesperson Nabil Abu Rudaina warned the policy would undermine international efforts to halt escalation and held the occupation fully responsible for the consequences. And in the Gaza file tonight, medical sources in the Strip say 5 martyrs were brought to hospitals in the past 24 hours, including 4 newly killed and 1 body recovered. They add that the death toll from the occupation's aggression on Gaza has risen to 71,667 martyrs and 171,434 wounded since October 7, 2023. Since the October 11 ceasefire, at least 492 martyrs and 1,356 wounded have been recorded, along with the recovery of 715 bodies. The United Nations says announcing the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire is a crucial step toward ending the violence and restoring peace in the Strip. Briefing the Security Council, UN official Ramaz al-Akbarov stressed the need for coordination among all parties and reaffirmed the UN's commitment to supporting Gaza's reconstruction.
The announced start of the second phase of the President Trump's 20-point plan, comprehensive plan, is a critical step in consolidating the ceasefire in Gaza, alongside the establishment of subsidiary bodies of the Board of Peace, including the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza and the Office of the High Representative for Gaza. The task at hand is monumental. It requires full coordination among all stakeholders, taking into account the existing systems and capacities. The United Nations stands ready to support the committee and the Palestinians in Gaza as they start the arduous work of rebuilding.
For his part, Palestinian Ambassador Riyad Mansour says for a ceasefire to hold, the occupation must stop trying to dictate Gaza's future and withdraw completely.
Israel is not the sovereign in the Palestinian territory. This illegal occupation has no rights whatsoever in occupied Palestine, including in Jerusalem. Mr. President, the ceasefire's permanence and success requires that Israel cease trying to dictate the future of Gaza and to fully withdraw from the territory. Gaza is an integral part of the Palestinian territory. I repeat, Gaza is an integral part of the Palestinian territory. It belongs to the Palestinian people, nobody else.
The UN's OCHA says over 1 million people in Gaza urgently need shelter due to widespread destruction and severe shortages. Families remain trapped in unsafe conditions as the humanitarian crisis worsens. OCHA and partners are providing tents, blankets, and other materials, but these temporary measures offer limited protection during the winter. Still with the Middle East developments, and according to Syrian state media and Sanaa report, occupation forces carried out an incursion in Qanitra province, southern Syria, and arrested a young man. Sources say the arrest took place at dawn in the Ain Qadi farm area. Zionist occupation aircraft also sprayed an unknown substance on agricultural land, marking the second such incident in the area. Russian President Vladimir Putin praised Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara for efforts to restore Syria's territorial integrity after government forces recaptured areas from Kurdish control. Meeting at the Kremlin on Wednesday, Putin congratulated al-Shara on progress toward national unity. al-Shara thanked Putin for Russia's support in stabilizing Syria and the region. The Kremlin also said the leaders discussed the future of Syrian forces in Syria.
We have closely followed your efforts to restore Syria's territorial integrity and want to congratulate you on the momentum this process is gaining. We have always advocated for restoration of Syria's territorial integrity. You know this, and we support all your efforts in this direction. I hope that the integration of the Euphrates region is undoubtedly a crucial step in this direction and will contribute in the restoration of Syria's territorial integrity as a whole.
President al-Shara, for his part, said he hopes Russia will help bring stability to Syria and the wider Middle East.
We have many mutual topics that I hope we can discuss in detail during this fruitful meeting. I believe that Syria has made significant progress and has successfully navigated many obstacles over the past year, the latest of which was the challenge of unifying Syrian land, which Syria's position over the past year has been in support of this unification. Russia certainly plays an important role in stabilizing the situation not only in Syria, but in the Middle East region as a whole. We hope these efforts continue so that the Middle East can be in the best condition for stability and development, and for it to progress from a condition of destruction to a condition of stability and development.
Moving on to another topical development, U.S. President Donald Trump says another U.S. naval fleet is now heading toward Iran. In a speech on Tuesday, Trump said he hopes Tehran will reach a deal with Washington. He also defended last June's U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear targets.
And in June, we obliterated Iran's nuclear capacity in Operation Midnight Hammer. You saw that. People have been waiting for 22 years to do that, and we were right at the end. They were about a month away from having a nuclear weapon. We had to do it. And by the way, there's another beautiful armada floating beautifully toward Iran right now. So we'll see. I hope they make a deal. I hope they make a deal. They should have made a deal the first time they'd have a country.
On a similar note, President Donald Trump is warning Tehran time is running out. In a post on Wednesday, he urged Iran to speed up negotiations on its nuclear program, saying a U.S. attack would be far more devastating if a deal isn't reached. Trump says he hopes Iran will agree to a fair deal that excludes nuclear weapons.
Hopefully, Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons, one that is good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence. As I told Iran once before, make a deal. They didn't. And there was Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. The next attack will be far worse. Don't make that happen again.
For its part, Iran's UN mission warned Wednesday that Tehran would respond in an unprecedented way if attacked by the United States. In a post on X platform, the mission said Iran is open to dialogue based on respect and mutual interests, but stressed it will defend itself if forced into war. Iran's foreign minister says the United States must stop its threats if it wants negotiations. Abbas Araghchi's statement comes after President Donald Trump raised the possibility of military action over protests in Iran. Araghchi told State TV that for talks to succeed, Washington must end what he called its excessive demands.
Our position is clear. Negotiations cannot take place under threats, and any talks must be conducted in conditions where threats and excessive demands are set aside. A military threat would lead to instability across the entire region, especially given the nature of the US presence there. This is, in my view, a shared understanding in the region. The region is firmly opposed to military threats, and there is a broad consensus that instability will result in major challenges for the region. Therefore, regional countries oppose this issue.
State media reports Iran's foreign minister denies recent contact with the United States envoy. Abbas Araghchi said on Wednesday there have been no requests for negotiations with Washington. He stated Iran remains in touch with what he termed mediating countries for consultations.
There has been no contact between me and Mr. Witkoff in recent days, nor has any request for negotiations been made by us. Various intermediaries have, of course, been in touch. Different countries are trying in good faith to play a role, and we're in contact with them, but no decision has yet been taken, and there has been no request from our side.
In a related news story, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan urged the United States on Wednesday to resolve issues with Iran directly rather than pushing for a comprehensive deal, noting that Iran is ready for talks on its nuclear program. Fidan told Reuters that Turkey opposes any foreign intervention or attack on Iran, warning that starting another war would be a mistake. Turning to other news, the African Energy Commission says Algeria is among the few African countries with near 100% access to electricity and gas. In a Wednesday report, the Commission credited Algeria's success to strong public policies, robust energy infrastructure, and sustained government support. The recent bias of French public TV towards Algeria still impacts French politics. The former presidential candidate and France-Algeria Association head called for cooperation based on truth and respect, accusing the far right of deliberate provocation. More on this story with Maro Blaiwar.
The challenge of treating Algeria as an equal partner remains a tough issue for many French politicians, especially for the far right. They often launch political provocations against Algeria through both public and private media. Some French officials attribute the biased coverage of Algeria in public media to a lingering colonial mindset. These actors have yet to move beyond the colonial era, relying on provocations and ultimatums to feed their insecurities and serve their own interests.
Il faut faire reculer les postures politiciennes.
We must put an end to politicized positions, provocations, and divisive rhetoric promoted by those who do not want Algeria to prosper and who still refuse to recognize Algeria's national sovereignty, its diplomatic role in the world, its choice of non-alignment, and its full freedom to choose its alliances and causes.
For Algeria, mutual respect and equality between nations are non-negotiable principles. Respect for sovereignty and the legacy of colonial history cannot be compromised or fragmented in international relations.
We must tear down walls to establish roots of knowledge and respect through dialogue. Memory is neither a privilege nor an inherited guilt. It is the truth of wounds and traumas that must be named, addressed, and apologized for.
Hostility toward Algeria remains deeply rooted among far-right extremists in France. With the 2027 elections approaching, the far-right sees this antagonism as a critical path to the Élysée Palace, amid a political scene lacking leaders able to check extremist forces.
Switching focus to the war in Sudan, the Sudanese Doctors Network says the Rapid Support Forces' two-year siege of Dilling, South Kordofan, has caused a worsening humanitarian crisis. Spokesperson Tasnim Al-Amin told All24 News TV on Wednesday that the town faces severe shortages of medical staff, critical supplies and food, leading to rising malnutrition, especially among children, pregnant women and the elderly.
The Sudanese Doctors Network is urging international and regional organizations, UN agencies, and all humanitarian bodies to intervene urgently to establish an immediate humanitarian airlift to the city of Dilnij, which recently emerged from a siege that lasted more than 2 years. This siege has created a dire humanitarian and health situation, with the city suffering from a severe shortage of medical personnel and a critical lack of medical and food supplies, in addition to a worrying deterioration in the overall health situation.
The Darfur regional government says the Rapid Support Forces are using all methods of genocide against detainees in the region's prisons. Spokesperson Ahmed Shanab told All24 News TV on Wednesday that the RSF denies prisoners basic necessities, including food and medical care, and subjects them to torture and killings.
All the people in Tigris are now in a state of shock, unable to believe what's happening because they've been deprived of food, water, and health care. They're completely cut off from everything. They can't even handle anything properly. This means that the people currently in the Tigris area and its surroundings are now at risk, or at risk of genocide altogether because of this militia. They're being deprived of food, water, and health care. They have no access to treatment, no access to basic necessities, nothing.
And as you have followed in our tonight's headlines, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas warns Europe is no longer Washington's main focus. In a speech in Brussels, Kallas said the EU must urgently strengthen its own defense, citing the challenges posed by President Trump's unpredictable policies.
It means that Europe must step up. Europe is no longer Washington's primary center of gravity. The shift has been ongoing for a while. It is structural, not temporary. It means that Europe must step up. No great power in history has ever outsourced its survival and survived.
Kallas said Washington remains a key partner, but stressed that as European or U.S. attention shifts, NATO must strengthen its European role to stay effective.
Arguably, the biggest change in the fundamental reorientation is going on across the Atlantic, a rethinking that has shaken the transatlantic relationship to its foundation. Let me be very clear. We want strong transatlantic ties. The US will remain Europe's partner and ally, but Europe needs to adapt to new realities. These developments put a severe strain on the international norms, rules and the institutions enforcing them that we have built over 80 years. The risk of full-blown return to coercive power politics, spheres of influence and world where might makes right is very real.
In a related news story, the United States has launched technical-level talks on Greenland with Danish authorities and island officials. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on Wednesday that a process is underway aiming for a good outcome for all parties. Greenland's Prime Minister Hans Frederik Nielsen says the island needs stronger security and surveillance but will not yield to outside pressure. In a joint statement with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, Nielsen said the government is balancing external pressures with the concerns of Greenlandic citizens, stressing that enhanced security is necessary given Russia's current actions. On his flight to China, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer set out a dual goal for his trip: deepening political and trade links with Beijing while managing security risks. Starmer said the UK cannot afford to ignore China's economic opportunities, but must stay alert to potential threats as tensions between Western nations and Beijing continue to rise.
Say that 8 days is a long time in politics. Try 8 years, because it's 8 years since a British Prime Minister stepped on Chinese soil. And so on this delegation, you're making history. You're part of the change that we're bringing about. And that's consistent with everything that we've done in government, particularly internationally, because we are resolute about being outward-looking, about taking opportunities, building relationships, having confidence globally, and always being absolutely focused on our national interest. And it is in our national interest to engage with China. It's the second biggest economy in the world.
The Kremlin says any future meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky must be carefully planned and focused on results. Policy aide Yuri Shakov told Russian state TV on Wednesday that Moscow has not ruled out a meeting inviting Zelensky to Russia if he's ready and promising full security and necessary conditions.
This topic is not for us, and it was discussed for several times during telephone calls between our President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump. During these calls, Trump proposed us to consider such an opportunity. We have never ruled out such contacts. The main thing is that these contacts will be well prepared. It is the first thing. The second one is that it will need to be results-oriented.
And that brings us to the end of our news for tonight. To catch up on any part you missed or get the latest updates, you can always visit our social media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram. On behalf of all 24 News team, I'm Islam Set signing off. Thank you for watching. Take care.